Hi, I'm Dr. Baxter for 101 Years. Today I'm going to talk about how to get your ankles back in shape if you've had an ankle sprain or if you've suffered a fracture in your lower leg and you've got a good healed bone, but that leg's been in a cast for a while and the muscles have become weak and maybe the ankle is very stiff. So if you fall into one of those categories, this session on yoga for healthy ankles is going to be for you. So you'll need a couple of props. I'm going to be using a block, but I also have my homemade block that you could use something like that at home. And I've got these two wedges at either side of my mat, but you could also create a little lift by either rolling your sticky mat under or maybe taking a small washcloth and putting a couple rubber bands on it so that you could put the ball of your foot up onto the washcloth or your heel up onto the washcloth, as I'll be using the wedges for. So keep in mind that you can very inexpensively create something that will have a similar purpose at home. Before I show you the actual series of yoga asanas or poses that I want you to play with today, I do want to mention something about ankle sprains. Ankle sprains are incredibly common. The most common way that we sprain the ankle is by rolling onto the outer edge of the foot. This is called an inversion sprain, and it results in small ligaments in this area of the ankle being torn slightly. And once they're torn, they don't heal back up. And so there's a kind of looseness that occurs in that outer ankle that predisposes it to rolling in that same direction in the future. In fact, 90% of ankle sprains happen in that way. Only a few of them happen by turning the foot in. The second thing that's kind of interesting is that it's estimated that 10,000 Americans every day are suffering from an ankle that's been sprained. Now, if you spread that out to globally, we're probably going to be looking at hundreds of thousands of people every day that are contending with an actively sprained ankle. So keep in mind that you want to be able to build strength in the ankles, and you also want to have some mobility as long as it doesn't become hypermobile in that one particular direction. So I'm going to show you a few things that are strengthening, a couple things that are mobilizing, and overall, if you practice all these things together, number one, it might help you prevent an ankle sprain in the future, and number two, it could help you rehab an ankle sprain or also a fracture of a lower limb that's healed up, the bones are healthy, but you need to get that whole leg working normally again. So with that in mind, we're going to start by grabbing our block, and we're going to put the block between the inner thighs. I like to do this because then I can squeeze in the block and bring the inner edge of my foot more firmly down to the floor. So it's really a reminder to keep that inner edge of the foot firmly pressing down to the floor. Bring your hands onto your hips, take a breath in, and as you exhale, bend your knees forward and stick your butt back. So now I'm going into a little bit more flexion of my ankles. This is actually called dorsiflexion of the ankles. And then from there, to come into full Utkatasana, I'll inhale my arms up and over. I'll exhale my hands down to my sides, and I'll inhale and straighten my legs. I'm going to exhale as I sit back. I'm going to inhale my arms forward and up. And as I exhale my arms down, I'm going to go ahead and straighten my legs. I'm going to inhale here and exhale, bend the knees. I'm going to inhale the arms up. And as I exhale, I'm going to come back up to the standing position. You take an inhale to get ready. You exhale, coming into Utkatasana. You can go down a little bit lower as long as the heels can stay on the ground. Inhale the arms up, and then exhale, come back up. So as your ankles get both more limber and more strong, you can start to go down a little bit deeper, bringing the arms up, and then coming all the way up and out. So go slow, start high, then work your way lower, and maybe eventually you can get down to the point where your thighs are almost parallel with the floor. And you want to make sure that your heels don't pop up suddenly. So that's the thing you want to keep an eye on. So that's a great initial way to kind of work on both strengthening and mobilizing the ankle joint. You can set your block now off to one side. And now we're going to utilize our wedges. We're going to assume, just theoretically, that I've sprained both ankles. Oh, I sprained this ankle and I broke this one. So I want to be a little more careful with my ankles in my standing poses. So I'm going to come into position for Warrior Two. And because I don't want to have too much pointing of my foot, if I have a little lift for the ball of my foot, it's going to allow that ankle to be a little less painful when I'm working in the pose. So if we're going to also honor the back leg, that's a pretty deep bend, and my back heel, I could slide my little wedge or my little roll a little closer, and I could let my back heel be up, my front foot be up, and that's going to keep the ankles a little more neutral while you're working. Over time, As the ankles start feeling better and better, you move the wedges further and further away, or your little rolled up hand towels further and further away, and bringing the feet closer and closer to the ground. So here's the dynamic sequence. On an inhale, my arms come out to the side. As I exhale, I bend my front knee just a couple inches until it's right over the ankle, and I stop right there. And then inhale, straighten the leg, and exhale the arms down. Inhale, the arms come up. Exhale, straighten the front leg. Inhale, bring it back, and bring the arms down. Now, if I were to inhale my arms up and take my knee way out over my ankle, number one, that might be too much strain for the ankle. Number two, it might be too much for my front knee. So you want to kind of eyeball, try to get that over the knee when you're working back and forth. When I've done about 6 of those, I'll turn my feet even and maybe even step the feet together for a moment. Just make sure that my ankles are handling that amount of flexion and extension, rolling in, rolling out, before I move to the second side. Let's do the second side now. So step your feet apart, turn your front foot out, kick your back heel back. So I've got that little lift. It makes the ankle joint a little more neutral. I want to work the back leg. I'm going to inhale my arms out to the side. I'm going to exhale and bend the front knee just a couple inches, stopping over the ankle. Inhale, re-straightening the front leg, and exhaling down. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Just like that a few more times. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhale and exhale. Some people like to blend and do this all on one maneuver. You can do that. I kind of like to have a little more time to play, to get my mind really focused clearly. So I tend to break it up into those 2 different sections, but you could blend it if you wanted. Last one, and then release down. Once I'm feeling a lot better, I get my wedges completely out of the way, so I don't need to use them at all. And then I might come in and hold the pose statically. So static poses build endurance and more muscular strength. The dynamic poses build a kind of dynamic strength and also improve flexibility. So I like to do them both. But what I would do is I'd turn my front foot out and my back foot in, and then I'm going to actually lift my toes up off the floor. Then I'm going to come into the pose, keeping my toes lifted. Now, it might be that the pinky toe doesn't want to lift all the way, or the big toe, but you do the best you can to keep all 10 toes lifting while you're in the pose. This is going to strengthen a lot of the muscles on the tops and sides of the ankles to help support those ligaments that got overstretched earlier. So you're recruiting other areas of the body to help out the injured ankle. And then I'm going to come up and out, relax my toes, turn my feet even, maybe just kind of wiggle the toes and knees a little bit. And then I'm going to switch my feet to the second side. I'm going to lift my toes. I'm going to bend my front knee and come into static warrior 2 on the second side. I'm going to hang out for a minute or so. If it's too much, I might come out earlier than that. But about a minute is nice, maybe a little longer. The longer you hold it to a reasonable amount of time, the more strength you're going to build. All right, then we're going to straighten the front leg, release the toes, bring the arms down, and then come back together. The last thing I want to work, a couple last things I want to work on are balance issues. The better your balance is, the less likely you are to strain your ankle or re-injure yourself in the future. So I'm going to put the block back in position. I'm going to squeeze the block, and I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to lift my heels up, keeping the ball of the feet as even on the floor as I can, and I'm going to exhale and lower down. I could add a little arm movement in. I could inhale, my heels up, arms out to the side, exhale, and lower down. And again, I usually do about 6 of these. Inhaling up and exhaling down. Inhaling up and exhaling down. This can get really tricky. So the foot tends to want to roll out or in, and so you want to keep it very steady. Try not to roll to the right or the left as you go up and down. So do about 6 of those. And then release the block and let that go. The other balance pose that I find very interesting is tree pose. I'm just going to show you the simplest version of this. There are other more complex versions that may be available to you on this app at some point, but for now, just try this easy one. You're going to bring the foot up with the heel on the ankle and the toes on the floor. You're going to press the heel into the ankle, hips even. Bring your arms out to the side and turn your arms up. You can be creative. You could have kind of interesting branches going on, but you want to press the heel into the shin and the shin into the heel and try to stay as steady as you can on those feet. And after you've done that for about a minute, you'll release, second side, slide the heel up, ball the foot on the floor, press in, squeeze out, Bring the arms up and out to the side. And again, do something interesting with the arms to make it an interesting balance pose. This isn't super balancy because you still got both feet on the floor, but some of you are going to be surprised that this is actually a little challenging. So give this a try on the second side, about a minute or so, and then release. And then finally, come down to sitting for just a moment. I want to show you a little trick with a blanket or a towel. You roll it up. I've got this one with some rubber bands around it. You're going to put it this way. You're going to then put your ankles over the roll, and you're going to sit in Sukhasana like so. This is really wonderful because it doesn't require that your ankles have to sickle at all. They can stay very neutral, and then you can sit and work on your breath work or your meditation without any strain on the ankles or the area of injury in your lower leg. So there you have it, a wonderful practice for improving ankle health if you suffered from an ankle sprain or are recovering from a fracture to the lower limb. Try these things out, practice them regularly, and they should help you recover if you're injured or help prevent injury down the road if you're not. And as always, you can finish your practice by clicking on the relaxation breath on this app. Namaste.